Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're connecting from. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Miguel Garibay, and on behalf of the Tortora Bright Institute and the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces, I want to welcome you to this first in our series supporting those entering in the cyber workforce. Today is the second in our workshop series supporting those entering the cyber workforce. Last week, we had a great conversation around resumes. If you missed that event, you can find a replay on the events page of our website and on our YouTube page. This week, we'll be covering the interview process, and our next two workshops will cover continuing education and networking. Our fifth event, our job fair, will be moving from the end of May to June 14th. While we are disappointed about the delay, we are pleased to announce that the Workforce Solutions of North Central Texas is partnering with us to host this virtual event, and it's going to be amazing. And that's according to Jill, right? And everybody else. We will have registration open soon for that event. So watch your email for more details and make sure that you are following us on LinkedIn. Our format today will be an interactive one. We have some slides, but more importantly, we have an amazing panel to share with you their experience in the hiring process in the cyber industry. They will share best practices, do's and don'ts, and tips for you to be able to put your best self forward as you move through the job search process. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go through the topics we have laid out. Our plan is to leave 30 minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A, but we're happy to address questions through the event. Also, the presentation that we are using today will be available to everyone at the end of the event, and we have samples of a cover letter, resume, reference page, and LinkedIn profile. They are on point and can be used as a starting point for you. And now I am honored to present you our panel. Aggie, will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, my name is Aggie and I'm the HR director for Aventer. I joined in the resume portion of the workshop, so you guys may have met me there, but I have been in various industries in HR for over 20 years, everything from healthcare through government, and in cyber probably for the last 10 out of that 20-some years. So I'm really excited to be here, honored to be invited, and looking forward to share some of my knowledge.
Thank you, Aggie. Rajesh?
Thank you, Miguel. My name is Rajesh. You can call me Raj. I have been working with Avanza Corporation for almost like 13, 14 years now. I've been into this industry from last 22, 23 years and have interviewed a lot of cybersecurity folks. And please feel free to tap in onto my knowledge, and lucky to be here on this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Atwood. I am the talent acquisition business partner at Davies Group, and I head up all of the talent acquisition for our U.S. parent company. And we do have a department that is solely dedicated to InfoSec and cybersecurity.
Thank you. And last but not least, Zach.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach Hill. I'm currently a director of marketing for a company called TCM Security. We provide mainly pen test training is what we're known for. Feel free to visit our academy where you can learn more about that. But I have a unique background where I started actually in marketing and then started working in more of an IT role and got into cybersecurity. And now I'm kind of back doing marketing for cybersecurity. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. And thank you again for being here, for your support, and to my partner, Jill Wyman, for helping us maneuver things in the back end. Thank you. Now, let's jump into the topic of interviews. And I'm going to start with this one. In-person versus virtual. What are the biggest differences? And do you prep for them differently? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in here. So there is a difference between, in personal and virtual. And that back in the day, we used to just do always in person, right? Now, post-COVID, we do most of them virtual. I think that the biggest difference is really, selling yourself and letting your personality shine through when you are on video, when you are not in the same room, you're not able to shake hands. So you have to really take that extra care to show your personality, to make sure that you are engaged with the interviewer, to make sure that you're dressed appropriately, the same as you would for the in-person. You need to present yourself the same as you would if you're in person. So there's some similarities and some differences where I think you have to try a little harder.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to jump in?
And I will just jump in kind of on the in-person one. In this post-COVID world, yes, people are more aware of let's not touch or whatnot. But if you are comfortable with shaking someone's hand, ask the other person and let them know, say, hey, I would like to shake your hand. Are you comfortable with that? Because they may not be, and you are. So just kind of respect that boundary. But if they automatically extend their hand to shake yours and you're not, just politely let them know, say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with shaking hands. It's nice to meet you, and move on from there.
Okay.
And Miguel, I would like to add something here. And nowadays, after COVID or during COVID also, almost all the interviews were virtual. And I think I have started liking those virtual interviews because it allows me to hire a person that was not possible earlier, because the person would have to be in person, take a flight, come here. So many times we would end up losing on some qualified candidates, but now it allows me to hire a candidate from, let's say, Texas or from California or from Florida or from many other different states where the access was limited earlier. So this is kind of something that has opened up, an avenue has opened up for us to review those candidates too.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Zach, do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like is one style better than the other? Coming from an introvert myself, I enjoy the virtual interviews much more. And a lot of people who work in IT tend to be introverts. So you might find that the virtual interview is much easier for you to manage. So I'm actually a huge fan of the virtual interviews myself. So I'm very excited for that, the way that that's transitioned.
Yeah. So speaking of prepping, how do you prep for an interview? I mean, what should I do ahead of time? And maybe if you're giving me some feedback, okay, I'm gonna have this virtual interview tomorrow with somebody from XX company. What should I do? How should I prepare? And the same, I'm gonna go to an interview tomorrow at noon. How should I prepare myself?
Yeah, I'd love to chime in on that. The best thing that you can do ahead of any interview, whether it's virtual or in person, is research that company. Learn and understand what it is that they do. Is it a product that they offer, a service, that they're selling? Understand kind of a mission that they may have about them, different, like fundraising and things that they may be involved with. Because when you go into the interview, I guarantee one of the questions you'll get is, do you know what we do here? And if you can come back and say, hey, I actually have a pretty good idea of what you do here. You do X, Y, and Z. That is going to show that you took the initiative to learn and understand kind of what that organization does, and you show an interest in them. They will they will value that immensely. So please take the time to research the organization before you go into the interview.
And to kind of touch on to what Zach is saying, my company, more often than not, I do get people who tell me, hey, I looked at your website, and they reiterate some information that confirms that's what they did, but they still don't have an understanding of what we do. it's okay to say, hey, I have this information, but I don't quite understand. Would you mind sharing that with me? Because it still shows you're interested. And the best way I explain to them, we're the insurance company behind the insurance companies. So, and once I tell them that, it seems to all click. So don't be afraid to acknowledge that you tried to do your research too, but you still don't have a grasp or full understanding of what you're comfortable with of what they do. But definitely research them.
Right, definitely, Jill. And it's so much better than trying to fake your way through it, right? And having that candidate try to like make up a story of what they think you do and they're off mark. So asking those questions if you're not quite sure is absolutely important. One other thing that I would say is if you're preparing for a virtual, make sure that you like set your stage in your home in such a way that you have as little distractions as possible. Like you don't have the cat walking back and forth on your desk and across the keyboard, you know, while the interviewer is trying to have a conversation with you, or you go on mute if your dog is barking. We understand it's a different setting, and sometimes you will have things happen that are unpredictable because you are in a home setting, but do your best to kind of try to have a quiet space that is private where you can focus and you're not distracted and you can really do a good job at answering questions because it's your only shot possibly, right?
And be cognizant of what's in your background too.
How you control the cat? As a cat person.
Put
Well-
the cat in a different room.
Yes, my cat is the one that would walk across the keyboard. He is in another room right now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's talk about timing. Be on time. What does that looks like? I mean, what did that means? Be on time.
Be early. If you're on time, you're late.
Okay. Anything else in there? I mean, like being present. I think sometimes being present, not only being on time, but being present probably away from distractions, you know, as Ajib was saying, Jill was saying. I think that's also very, very important. Okay, so
Yeah, and also, Miguel, sorry if I'm going to jump in here really quickly. When you're talking about like having a virtual interview, get on early, make sure your technology is working, make sure you have a link. Like, you know, there's times where things sometimes go south, and your link maybe has gone bad. And if you try it 10 minutes earlier and the link's gone bad, you at least have that 10 minutes to try to get a hold of your talent acquisition specialist or whoever you've been working with to let them know, hey, my link is not working. Can you help me? And you have that 10 minutes to troubleshoot versus being late or not showing up or showing up and being frantic or being frustrated when technology is not quite cooperating. Us interviewers sometimes like that because it shows your personality. Can you roll with challenges or are you going to get flustered? But it's not the most graceful way to start.
So it's not a test for people entering cybersecurity that the technology is not working, right?
No.
Okay.
And I'd like to like touch back on the preparing yourself. Make sure you have a list of questions prepared ahead of time, written down that you want to ask them.
Okay, great. Thank you. How should you dress? Is that different? Is there a different attire for virtual versus an in-person? Let's talk about both of them.
I'm always a fan of dress to impress. I mean, that's kind of what's always worked for me. And the many people that I've worked with, I think, generally you want to show up in the best attire that you can and the best looking that you can. You know, sometimes it can be hard, I think, for people to afford some of the best things that you can, but I will be 100% honest with you. I've gone to Goodwill to buy a suit for like $6 because I needed it for an interview. And that's just what I had to do. But I wanted to go there and be as best, show up the best looking that I possibly could, just to show that, hey, I am a professional. I'm coming to a professional setting, and I mean business essentially. And that's the same whether it's a virtual or in person. Anytime I go on a virtual interview, I still have my suit on. So.
Absolutely. And kind of know the company's culture if you can. That kind of goes back to looking at their website. If they have the life in whatever the company is, and you see people who are professionally dressed, that will give you a clue of, hey, that's how I need to dress. But if you see people that are more business casual, then it's probably okay for you to do that as well. So, and don't look like you just came rolled out of bed. Brush your hair, brush your teeth. Even if you're on virtual, you'll feel better about yourself, and therefore you'll present yourself the way you feel.
That's a great point, Jill, because oftentimes, like, however we look and however we feel about ourselves is how we sound, right? So I always, every morning, I have a morning routine. And even when we had COVID, and Rajesh can attest to, because he's on video with me almost every single day, I always do my hair, have my makeup on, I'm dressed. I like never show up in my pajamas or something. I think I like one time I was in a hoodie when I actually had COVID, but it was, you feel more professional, more put together when you take that time, and it shows in how you represent yourself.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about that business casual dress. Oh, sorry. Let's hold on there. Business casual, professional, dress for success, or dress to impress. Give me an example. What will be dressing as business casual?
A nice pressed shirt, or maybe it's a nice collared shirt that doesn't have holes, that's not too big, that's not faded and needs to be thrown out. Should be just trashed instead of donated. Something that pretend like you're going to go on a date. What would you want someone to see you in? Because I mean, this is technically a employee-employer date, if you will, to see if y'all like each other.
So if you go to an in-person one, do you recommend wearing cologne and all those things?
If you are a
makeup in a woman?
If you are a cologne and perfume wearer, that is up to your discretion. Just make sure it's not overpowering. Scents can trigger some people with migraines or whatever. And what if your interviewer is one of those people? They will all of a sudden not be able to invest in that interview the way they would want to, even though they're going to try. It will be a struggle. So just keep it just a couple squirts and that's it. Makeup is up to your discretion as well, because not everyone likes to wear makeup. But if you do wear it, try to make it look as natural as possible.
Make sure it's sensible. Yeah. Like, for
Not
women, like crazy lashes that are out, to here, or like be sensible. If you're not going out for an evening out with your friends to party, you're going in for an interview. It's a different level of makeup that's appropriate.
Yes, and still kind of the same thing on what you wear. If you determine it's business casual, wear business casual. But still make it like maybe a pair of nice slacks, a nice pressed shirt. If it's professional, clearly the suit, but make sure the suit fits and matches and looks clean.
Unless it's your style. Like I have had guys show up, to interviews, and they had like different suit pants and a different suit jacket and like a fun shirt. And it was representative of their personality. And it went well together. Like they were making a fashion statement, which I was kind of like, hey, that's really nice. Even though you're kind of mismatched, it works.
Okay.
If you I just saw Vincent's question pop up. Vincent, if you are unsure, absolutely yes, it's better to overdress than underdress. You cannot come back from underdressing if you're not certain.
Great. Thank you. Any other do's and don't do's, for both in person and virtual interviews?
Facial, I would say facial piercings is one that you might want to be cognitive of. Don't let them be a distraction. Remove it if you're, if you're going to be either one in person or not.
Anything else?
This is so fresh in my mind, so I'm going to repeat it. That if you're going to dye your hair over the weekend, the day before an interview, don't wait until afterwards. Because unless you know that culture is comfortable with that, because I actually did have someone get passed up because of the wild coloring of the hair.
Wow.
It wasn't something that fit in with that culture. It was like a bullpen style organization where clients walked through, and it was a conservative organization. So that was not something that fit in. So if you're going to do it, wait until after the interview.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, a big one is also for virtual dues, absolutely be on camera. It's a must. Be on camera, be prepared to be on camera. For in person, do not have your computer in front of you. I have had some people bring in their laptop and they're on their laptop in the interview. And I would ask them after the interview, I would say, can you explain the laptop? And they would say, well, I'm taking notes. But in our, at least, in our culture, if someone is sitting there typing while you're in an interview, I have a feeling like you're answering emails or chats, or I don't know what you're doing. And I don't feel like you're engaged. So if you're going to take notes, pen and paper, don't do the laptop. I know it might be easier. I know we're we're a cybersecurity company. Maybe you're trying to impress with technology, but please don't.
And I see in our slide the universal don't, the phone. Put the phone on silence.
Yes. Don't answer texts.
No. If you can, just leave your phone in the car. That's the best. So you're not tempted.
Great.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to add to the bring copies of your resume. Also for yourself, bring a copy of the job posting. So you have it in front of you, so you can reference back to it if you need to.
Okay. Great. Let's move to another side of this interview process, which is how you make a connection with your interviewer. And do the same strategies apply for, again, both virtual and in-person interviews?
Yes, I think it absolutely does apply for both in-person and virtual, but touching on what Aggie said earlier, it does make it harder via virtual because they only see your body language from like your shoulders up. So they don't see those slight little lean-ins like this maybe as easily as if you were in person, which obviously indicates interest.
So what would be your recommendations, Jill, for a virtual interview? What would you recommend to make a connection? And then if somebody can, after we discuss the virtual step, somebody can give us some ideas on how to make a connection in an in-person interview.
As far as the virtual, like, for example, I'm looking directly at my camera right now. So it looks like I'm looking at you, but I have a monitor right behind there. And if I look up at my monitor, you can tell I'm not looking at you. So look directly into the camera because that does help convey that eye contact. And I am 100% one of those eye contact people. That's what I need from someone, so I know you're paying attention to me. And try to control any nerves or tics that you have the best that you can. I know that can be hard sometimes, but it's okay if you have them. Just try to manage them the best you can and try to convey that genuineness in your tone of voice whenever you speak to someone virtually. So, and what was the second half of your question? I'll let Abby answer.
Let's stay in the virtual for right now. First, how we make a connection if we have an interview in a virtual setting? Aggie?
I would say, you know, similar to what Jill said, the eye contact is a big one for me. I would also say that, you know, smiling and being engaged. You can tell if someone is engaged in the conversation and they're paying attention to you. And you can tell if someone is absolutely checked out and they're not really into it, or if they're facing you sideways because they're not looking into the camera, right? How do you make that connection? You just have to pay attention. And I think that people can feel that you're paying attention, that you're answering questions and you're on topic when you're answering questions. You think things through. It's okay to have a moment of silence and say, let me think about that. You know, be mindful of the fact that interviewer can't see, like Jill said, the rest of your body, so they can't tell. Or are you thinking about things, or, you know, it's a little harder. So maybe communicate a little bit more, but don't go on rants forever and ever, because then we'll have a hard time to stay on engaged. Rajesh, anything from your side? Oh, sorry, maybe Zach.
Zach?
I think one important thing that we kind of maybe left out in the preparation portion of this, but also what's been really important with making a connection is making sure you have your face lit up as much as possible. I cannot stress that enough. So whether that means you have to go sit by a window so that you can illuminate your face a little bit, or you just grab like any lamp in your house and put it next to you, please have your face lit up, because that's going to also help draw emphasis to you trying to make, you know, the eye contact, trying to, you know, acknowledge, you know, that you're paying attention and things like that. That type of stuff like really sticks out, I think, in interviews, especially in virtual interviews nowadays. At least it shows that you've taken the time to, you know, present yourself the best that you can, right? And we're also looking for you know, cues, right? When we're doing these interviews, right, we want to see your facial expressions and how you respond to things. So as the person doing the interviewing, like, that's something I'm looking for as well. So having that light on your face, I think, will definitely help.
Excellent feedback. So do you think all those apply also for the in-person, or if there's something that the people should do different during the in-person interview?
I don't think it's as hard to convey those things in person.
I think in the in-person interview, if you do an eye-to-eye contact, that's very important, because that shows that yes, you are attentive and you are kind of involved in the discussion that is happening. So that's what I've seen compared to the virtual side of the things. And on the virtual side, whatever all of the inputs that you guys just shared, they're all very, very important.
Great. Excellent. I get very nervous with in-person interviews, and I even start sweating. So virtually, I can hold it. I can enjoy the conversation and do anything. But even if I have to go to an in-person interview, it's like I have to prep myself, relax, drink my coffee, get there ahead of time, and just sit down and be calm, because I start sweating, you know, every time that I interact with people. Any feedback for me?
Put on extra deodorant.
Yeah, that too. I'd love to kind of chime in there. When you, especially if you have that type of feeling where you're that nervous, it's always important to remember that the interview goes both ways. So just as much as you're there to hopefully get a job, you're also there to make sure that that company is going to be a good fit for you. So you kind of have to take some like confidence in that, and knowing that you're also there to make sure you actually want to work there. So it's important to kind of understand that going into the interview as well. As much as you might need a job and might want that next step, what if you see a bunch of red flags? You know, what if you see things that are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to work here. You know, what if you can't dye your hair a crazy color, and that goes against, you know, what you want to do? Well, then that's not going to be a good fit for you, and that's okay. You don't want to step foot into a job that you're actually absolutely going to like dread. So I know I kind of went off like a little bit of a tangent based on what you brought up, but yeah, to help settle the nerves, I always go into interviews thinking like I need to make sure that that company is going to be okay for me too, and I think that always helps me.
Yeah,
Great.
interview the interviewer. So
Great point, Zach. Yeah. Also, Miguel, if you think about it this way, the person that is interviewing you, they're also human. And just remember that, humanize them for yourself, right? Because a lot of people get intimidated by titles and they're like, oh, I have to talk to a C-level, or I have to talk to a director, you know? We're all people. We're people, we have families, we have, we get nervous, we're normal human beings. And so take it from that standpoint, just think, it's a person I'm having a conversation with about a topic that I'm sure you know, right? If you've studied, you've had jobs in an area, or you've taken internships if it's someone who's younger in their or earlier on in their career. And so just lean into the confidence of the fact that you know what you know, and the person who's interviewing has also been in your shoes. They have interviewed, and they're just a human on the other side, and it's okay. And if they're intimidating, probably don't work.
You want to work there.
right.
Now let's staying here with the connection issue. Is interviewing for cyber careers or cyber companies or IT people or CTOs different than interviewing for a sales company or human resource job or teacher aide job? I mean, is it different? Are the expectations different for people interviewing for cybersecurity careers?
I would say absolutely.
From a cultural standpoint, it's still going to be similar, but from a technical standpoint, absolutely.
Okay.
And I echo the same thing what Jill just mentioned, that yes, the process remains the same of interviewing, whether you're interviewing for a sales job, marketing job, technical job, and any other sector also. But it's just that technical knowledge, the jargons and the experience of the technology side, that'll be a little different on the cybersecurity compared to any other field.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajesh. Okay, let's move. Sorry,
I was just going to jump in. I also think that with being in cybersecurity, we're a little more hypersensitive to what you actually share in the interview. And are you maintaining confidentiality? Are you being diligent about what you're sharing with us? Because that is a huge red flag for us. And that is something that maybe in other industries is not as permanent, but we're like, we're like the keepers of the secrets. And so we need you to be able to keep secrets. And so I think there's hypersensitivity to what you're sharing.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's move to our next slide, because I think we started talking a little bit about questions, but what are some of those questions that people maybe ask, during the interview? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I think, typical interview process, you go through like this, what's called the STAR method, which is situation, task, analysis, analyze, resolution, right? And there's so many questions that are based around that. Tell me about a time when you did this, or tell me about this type of experience, or have you, dealt with a manager in XYZ? And there's all these types of situations or questions that are asked in interviews. Every single interview you go into, you get asked a question like this. You have to be prepared for those types of things ahead of time. And there are plenty of guides and like questionnaires out there. So you could look up like typical pen test questions that you get during an interview, or typical behavioral type questions you get during an interview. And then you can start to kind of go through like your thought process and go through your history and start writing those, like writing down your experiences to those, you know, types of questions that you'll get. So look up the STAR method, look up those typical questions, and then start writing down like the answers that you have to those questions. When did you experience a time that you dealt with a difficult manager? Write that down, and have that answer ready ahead of time, because you're going to get asked questions like that in an interview for sure.
And make
Great.
sure that you have multiple situations. Don't use one situation for every single answer. You can use the same situation for a couple of them because it completely may be relevant. But on another question, make sure that you have a different situation that you can share with them to show your variety of handling those types of things.
Okay. Aggie?
Yeah, I would probably echo what Zach and Jill are saying, is have some things prepared, especially if you're introverted or you get nervous in interviews, kind of practice ahead of time. But I would also say don't over prepare, because it's not, when you're not genuine and you're not really, like I have had situations where people don't even listen to the question all the way. They just think they know what I'm going to ask because of how I started. And then they answer the question and they're not even answering my question at all. They're just regurgitating whatever they practiced. And that's right there, end of an interview for them.
So what will be one or two questions that you will ask during the interview process? Who wants to go first? If you're interviewing somebody to come and work for your company, what are some of those questions that you will ask?
So Miguel, I'll take a shot at this.
Okay.
So many times when I interview people, I always, yes, the information is available in the resume about what they have done, what kind of achievement they have, what kind of details they are specifying in that resume, and also in the verbal communication or whatever the candidate is presenting. But many a times we kind of try to bring out scenarios related to their experience, scenarios related to what we are looking for in a candidate in our organization, so that we can evaluate, yes, the candidate is fit for this particular role. And those scenarios can be multiple scenarios also, kind of leading scenarios related to cybersecurity area. And other times what we have also done is we have shared a questionnaire beforehand to come and solve this, these questions, and come prepared with these answers. And then during the interview, we ask those scenarios and we ask those answers, how you arrived at an answer. It's not a perfect thing that yes, one answer is right or the other answer is right. It's just the approach that we are looking to see in their thinking process, and then how they will behave or how they will act or how they will solve the problems when they are working with us. So those are some of the things that we kind of have done and continue to do, and have seen other people also in my team doing it.
And I think Rajesh is taking us to this the technical side.
Oh, yes,
what
yes.
should we expect from a technical perspective in an interview? Anybody else wants to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's typically the biggest question that I've received over the years, and where people have the most confusion, the most worry. They're just very concerned, like what type of technical questions am I going to get in the interview? And you can never say, right? You don't know unless you've actually experienced that interview, right? the best way that you can prepare for the technical side of the interview is to look at the job description. That job description is going to highlight, the specific skills, experiences, certifications, et cetera, that they're looking for in that environment. So you can pretty much bet that they are going to ask you some type of questions related around those technologies to see if you have those skills to match. And also based on your resume as well, like what skills and experience does your resume outline? They may ask you a specific question based on that as well. And then, like I think Rajesh was saying that, ahead of time, they may let you know that there will be a technical like skill challenge that you need to do. So, there's that aspect of it as well. But, typically they'll kind of give you an idea or give you a heads up that there is some type of technical challenge. But, I don't think I've ever seen where somebody has gone into an interview where they weren't aware of that ahead of time. But as far as the questions go, job description and your resume, and then, be prepared. So bring that, like I think somebody said, bring a copy of that job description with you, absolutely. And study that thing ahead of time and see where, you're not meeting the mark on some of these skills or technologies. If there's something you're not familiar with, at least, learn about it a little bit, learn some of the fundamentals of it. You don't have to spend a ton of time on it. But if they ask you a question related to that, maybe you could say, hey, I'm not that familiar with it, but this is what I learned about it before I came to the interview. And that is going to impress that person that you're interviewing tremendously.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else would like to jump in? Yeah. Okay. So I think at this time we want to open up for questions. Questions. Do I miss this slide, Jill? Well, I think I did miss a slide. Questions that people should ask. See, I got nervous. I got very excited with all the amazing feedback you guys are sharing that I lost my slides. Anyways, what are some questions that we should ask? The people that they're going to the interview should ask during the interview.
It's kind of what I touched on earlier. The interview goes both ways. So ahead of time, when you're researching that company, you're understanding the things that they're doing. Hopefully, you're understanding maybe some of the technologies that they're utilizing and things like that. That could help you build a list of questions you may have during the interview. But I think what's outlined in this slide are definitely some of the best questions that you can utilize to your disposal there to kind of understand more about that organization and really make sure that they're a good fit for you. It's okay to ask questions, on the spot as well, based on maybe a response that they've given or, information that they've shared. Again, make sure that you understand as much as you can about them to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you. And please ask questions. It's very, very important. I hate when I don't get asked questions during interviews because it shows that they're not interested.
Even if you're talking to HR or talent acquisition, ask them questions. Maybe not technical questions that you would ask the hiring manager or part of the hiring team, but ask them, the general questions of what do you feel the company culture is like? What's your favorite thing about working there, kind of thing. Because if you ask them that and then you ask the hiring team those same questions, you'll start to see a pattern, and that can help you make a decision if this is the right match for you too, along with the technical questions that the hiring team will ask you.
Okay. Is there anything that I shouldn't ask during the interview?
I think before anybody answers, I just have to say thank you for having me, and please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I have to drop off now because of my family members are here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Bye, Rajesh.
So I think we're talking about what are some of those things that we should ask, but is there anything that we should don't ask? I mean, that we should stay away from? And then I hear, Gil, you mentioned talent acquisition, and some other people mentioned the hiring team or the hiring manager, or sometimes HR does a quick, review of the person before the person is invited to an interview. Who wants to elaborate around that? Is that different? Are the expectations different?
Yeah, I
ahead.
can take that one. I think that, sorry, Miguel, I think that, yeah, definitely if you're interviewing with someone like Rajesh, who's our CTO, and, you know, don't ask him about benefits and pay and, you know, when will my dental be available? He doesn't know. You know, that's not a part of his, I mean, he does, but it's like not in his radar most of the time, right? So make sure that when you're asking questions of someone who's technical, you're asking technical questions, you're asking job related questions. What is the day-to-day like? What can I expect in my daily routine? You know, what are the clients like? Those types of questions. Ask the other questions of HR, and in turn, don't ask HR, hey, what will my day-to-day look like when I'm in this, you know, access management role? Because I don't know what their day-to-day looks like. I don't sit with them all day and I don't see how they work. So be mindful of who you're asking what questions of.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Jill, I feel like I stepped over you there.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Something
Do
that
you want to add to it,
mentioned,
Jill?
I do, something that
Okay.
Aggie touched on about the benefits and specifics of that. Don't ask that interview one. That's an assumption you got the job, and I understand that is important to you 100%. But wait until you have an offer. If it's important to you to kind of know some information, ask up front of like, hey, what benefits do you offer? And allow us to give you generalities of, well, medical, dental, vision, 401k, disability, life, you know, things like that. Allow that to be sufficient enough. And then as you go through the process, if you would like more detailed, that's fine, but wait until you've gone through at least the hiring team and you know if you're going to continue in the process.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, you know, don't really realize that, but when you do ask those questions first up front and you're like, okay, what's my package? What's the benefits? You know, it makes us feel like that's all you're here for. And the engagement and the kind of, you know, commitment to the job and your passion is not there for the actual work or for the actual company. It just makes us feel like you're just interested in the benefits and the paycheck and not really in the work. And we want, for us, for Avensor, it is important that our employees are passionate about cybersecurity, that they are engaged, that they are driven by developments, that they will be creative, that they will think outside of the box as far as, you know, new products and improvements, and they're always trying to stay a step ahead of the hacker. And so, you know, that's what we want to see, and that's what we're going to focus on. And if all you want to talk about is the paycheck, then
Which is important, right?
it is.
The paycheck is important, and it's okay to confirm at the very beginning that this is establish what your expectations are and make sure it's in that range, because you don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
You don't
And
want
mostly
to
job-
waste HR. You don't want to waste the hiring manager's time.
You know, most
And-
jobs nowadays have a lot of that information listed, at least generally in some way. And if they don't, I mean, especially if they don't have the salary range listed, I won't even bother applying because it's not worth my time.
Well,
Like, I'm
it's
not going to go
become-
through that process.
Sorry, Zach. It's
And we-
becoming more and more common that it is required for that salary range to be posted.
Mhm.
And it's not a up to or starting from, it's a legitimate salary range. And it's becoming more and more common that if it's not posted and you inquire about it, they have to disclose it to you.
Yes. And if you're working with a, you know, with a good company, like we always have a pre-screen. And in that pre-screen, we will talk about, you know, this is the job. This is the expectation of maybe hours or days, travel, salary, benefits. Are you okay with all of this? This is not an interview. This is just for us to make sure we can play in the same sandbox. Because if, most of our jobs require travel to client sites now and again. If you're absolutely not willing to travel at all, then we can't have a conversation. You will be dissatisfied because we'll keep wanting you to travel. We will be dissatisfied because you won't be able to travel. So we hash out that stuff at the very early stages. As you're so write it down so that as you're going through the interview process, you know what it is that, events or salary ranges, what the benefits are, so that you're not asking throughout the other interviews, what are these things when it has been given to you.
Thank you, Aggie. And we do have a question in the chat and from Steve. Thank you, Steve, for your question. When you know the job position is posted publicly, should you respond to a recruiter? Do you have a better chance with a recruiter than applying on the company website? Who wants to
So
take that one on?
the recruiter will get you directly right in front of that hiring manager, and most likely, in all likelihood. And if there is a recruiter associated with it, obviously the company is willing to pay that fee for it. So go ahead, take that route with the recruiter. If you don't have a recruiter for it and it is posted publicly on the company's website or wherever, go ahead and apply for it. And some of the things that I've had happen to me is people have reached out to me directly on one of my LinkedIn posts. They see that I'm the poster. They said, hey, I've submitted my resume. Here it is again to put right in front of you. And I will look at that. That makes my life easier. And actually, a lady who did that, she wound up getting the job because she did that. Otherwise, where she was at in the line of applicants of me looking at them, she was like 470 something out of 900 of them. The likelihood I'm going to look at all 900 is very small. So if you see that there's a high applicant count on it, because LinkedIn does show that, apply for it through the system, and then directly send it to the poster of the job.
Great.
I
Thank you.
agree.
So we have a slide in the screen, what not to say during the interview. And I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, but these are very, very important also bullet points that that people should consider and remember, during the interview process, which is don't talk about your personal life, family, friends. Don't talk about a past employer or co-workers. Don't talk in circles. What is that? Don't talk in circles. Make your point and move on. Can someone explain that to me?
Don't tell me the same thing over and over 5 different ways.
Okay.
Or the same way.
Okay.
Or the same way, yes.
Just tell me what.
Okay. Be okay with silence. Don't feel like you have to constantly talk. Give the interviewer time to process your response and ask the next question. Don't disclose confidential information. I think Aggie was talking about that earlier. And don't comment on the interviewer's appearance, and don't hit on them. Oh Lord, did that happen in the interview process? Really?
Yes, it does.
Yes,
Okay.
I have been asked out multiple times.
And I get told several times, just based on my voice, of inappropriate comments have been said. Let's just put it that way. And I'm just like, wow, holy moly.
Yeah.
But going back to the be okay with silence and allow the interviewer to process, Aggie mentioned it earlier. I want to reiterate, be comfortable with that silence for yourself as well, to allow yourself to process the question and to collect yourself to be able to answer them clearly, concisely, without talking in those circles.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely can't stress the talking in circles. Get to the point, be concise. A great tip for everybody out there is to, when like I said earlier, research some of these questions, right? Research some of the technical questions, research some of these behavioral questions, write down your answers and see how long they are, right?
Mhm.
And the pro tip here is take that super long answer, put it into Chat GPT and say, shorten this. Honestly though, that will help you learn how to build a more concise answer though to some of these questions. And I cannot tell you how important it is to be concise during interviews. A lot of companies are going through sometimes hundreds of interviews, maybe, maybe not. I mean, some, I guess, large organizations potentially could, but they're going through 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different interviews. Be concise, get to the point, and make your point also. Don't take forever to get there, right? To just, yeah, I'm doing it now, so I'll end my point. That's it.
Great.
That's what talking in circles looks like. Thanks for the
Very
example.
well, Zach. Yeah,
That's
but I
excellent.
also do want to stress on what Zach said is be mindful of the fact that the interviewer, oftentimes, if it's a talent acquisition, a person or an HR, especially with HR, when you're interviewing, typically that interviewer has interviews probably 7 out of the 8-hour day that they're working. And so if you're talking forever on one point, you will not get through all the questions they have
Mhm.
because they cannot go over. They have to stop you. And so you won't even know that maybe you only did half the interview and you've already taken away any chance because they have not had the opportunity to ask you the rest of the questions because you took so long answering the first 4.
Mhm.
So be mindful of that. Be mindful of time.
Exactly. That happened to me yesterday. I was 40 minutes into the hour and we were 3 questions deep. And if they tell you, and I don't mind telling people, hey, I have 20 minutes and this is how many questions I have left to get through, or else I'll have to cut it off. Take that as your warning of like, hey, I need to cinch this up, be quicker, more thorough, more efficient. And that person luckily did take that clue and we were able to finish.
Good for
Excellent.
them.
Okay. So mock interviews. Okay. What do you guys think about mock interviews? Do you recommend that? Who should you do it with? A friend, a coworker, or a
Chat
stranger?
GPT, right?
ChatGPT.
I mean, I'm
For your
half kidding
answers.
there. I'm half
That
kidding
makes me
there.
nervous, Zach.
No,
Yes,
I
yes.
know. Yeah, half kidding. But no, mock interviews are fantastic. Strongly believe in them. So as awkward as it can be to grab a friend or family member to do this with you, highly recommended because it's going to help you at least verbalize some of the the things that you've written down or thoughts that you have about some of these questions. And then again, it'll help you be more concise with those answers, just practicing it out loud with somebody. And that's something that we offer as part of our program because it's so important for potential, people who are getting into pen testing, especially, is to have some of this practice going through interviews, because you want to be able to excel and show that you're capable of being in these positions, being in cybersecurity. And I really feel like that doing mock interviews with whoever you can will be greatly helpful for you. Sorry.
And if you can't drag someone in with you, do it in front of a mirror. Like, when I teach a new class, I teach it to my children. And if they're not available to be captive audience, then I do it in front of a mirror.
Yeah, and if
You have a cell phone. Everybody has cell phones. Record yourself doing it and play it back, and like you can like visually see where you can make improvements. I recommend that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's very powerful, Zach, because you can then hear yourself and you can be more critical of how you speak and the tone and the volume and all of that. Excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that the tone, the volume, your facial expressions, your body language, will help you with that. But if you do have someone, make sure it's someone who will be objective with you, who's not going to tell you, oh, you did fabulously when really you didn't. Have someone who will give you that honest feedback to help you.
Great. Excellent. Okay, so let's see. I think we're ready to open up for some questions. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. Let me take a look at the chat, or any direct questions from our participants. Feel free to open your microphones and ask a question.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello,
Yeah.
how are you?
Good. How are you? Yeah. So my name is Fujia, and I'm currently a grad student. So in terms of the question part for the interviewer, that part. So I wonder like if it's kind of okay to maybe like go for some maybe tricky or spicy questions for them, like to maybe ask like what is like one or two parts of their their department that they wish they can improve for the time being, things like that. Would that be like a bit too tricky for them to answer? Like I wonder like
so.
what could be the current potential issue within the department?
I don't think so. I think that the way I would take it, if you ask me that question, is that maybe you're interested in areas of growth, right? If you are an individual or a company and you say, we're perfect, we have no problems,
Definitely a red flag.
I'm ideal, that's a red flag. We all should have areas of improvement. We should all be aware of what our areas of development are. And so when you're asking those questions, I don't think it's a bad question. I think I would look at it as you're looking for areas of where maybe you could help the company grow, or the company is aware of where they need to grow. I don't think that's a bad question.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Jill, do you have a different opinion?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
You don't think the employer take it as an issue? Like, so what are you trying to solve? Or why are you hiring for this position?
If they came across where they were making it an issue, that would be a red flag for me. You know, if they were, you know, questioning back in some type of tone or way that indicated, you know, like they were defensive, that would be a huge red flag for me.
Why? What are you trying to hide?
Exactly.
I get asked all the time of why is this position open? And well, it's either new or it's a backfill. And when people ask me, well, why is it a backfill? I will usually tell the person as to why it's a backfill. You know, maybe someone retired, maybe someone resigned for personal reasons, or maybe someone transferred over. They want that shows the company's story. So.
And that transparency is important. If the company is not willing to be transparent with you to some extent, and I'm not saying, hey, show me your financials, right? I'm talking about things that should be transparent. If the company is not willing to be transparent, do you really want to work for a company where you can't ask those questions, where you're in fear to ask questions?
Excellent.
I wouldn't want to. I want to be able to have a conversation without being worried that it's not going to be fruitful, or that maybe my opinion will be shut down. You know.
And if they won't share that, what else are they not going to share?
Right. Right.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your feedback. Any other questions from our participants? Well, the presentation that we use today it has been shared in our chat. You can download it from there. That's accessible. And also, please, you know, don't forget to register for our next event, which is going to be around continuing education. I think, you know, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been an amazing panel. Thank you for sharing your insights, your knowledge, your expertise. It's been fun and exciting. And I want to thank all those of you that joined today and participated with us. Make sure you follow TBI and the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces on LinkedIn, and make sure that you register for our next event, which is going to be around continuing education. We will have Desiree John from the Driver DX, Joshua Copeland from AT&T, and Ken Underhill from CyberLife. It's going to be a great event filled with so many insights, information that you don't want to miss out. So join us next week. And once again, thank you to all of you for participating, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Thank you.